Imagine the year is 1944. Delegates from 44 allied nations have assembled at the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Inside that room, a decision is about to be made that will influence the global economy for decades to come. Britain, which had dominated global finance for over 200 years, was financially exhausted. Its national debt had skyrocketed to 249% of GDP. After 2 world wars, the empire that once ruled the seas was broke. Everyone in that room understood this. So, something extraordinary happened. Global reserve currency status was passed from one empire to another, from the British pound to the US dollar. But this wasn't just a financial transaction, it was part of a pattern that has repeated for over 500 years, the cycle of rise, peak, overreach, and eventual decline. Every world reserve currency has followed this predictable path, and now, the US dollar is showing the same warning signs that appeared before every currency that came before it. To see the pattern, we need to go back to 1450. Portugal introduced the world's first true global reserve currency, the Portuguese real. For roughly 80 years, Portugal controlled global trade. Their success wasn't accidental. They revolutionized navigation and commerce by discovering new sea routes to Africa, Asia, and the Americas. After Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453, the old spice routes were blocked, but Portugal found a way around them. Lisbon became the world's trade hub. The Portuguese real was accepted across continents, from Europe to Asia. At its height, Portugal's empire spanned Africa, India, Malaysia, Japan, and even parts of China through Macau. But, as history shows, success leads to overreach. Maintaining military posts across multiple continents drained the treasury. Rival European powers like the Dutch, British, and French grew stronger. Political instability in the 1530s worsened matters, and by 1580 Spain absorbed Portugal. The Portuguese real had dominated world trade for 80 years, before being replaced by Spanish silver. Spain's rise began with the discovery of enormous silver deposits in Potosi, Bolivia in 1545. Between 1575 and 1635, this mine produced nearly half of the world's silver. The Spanish minted the famous pieces of 8 in Potosi, which became the first truly global currency. The Spanish dollar was widely trusted and even legal tender in the US until 1857. Spain's dominance lasted roughly 110 years, from the 1530s to the 1640s. Yet the familiar pattern appeared: overspending and debt. Charles I left his son Philip II enormous debt, 36 million ducats plus an annual deficit of 1 million. Philip defaulted 4 times, inflation surged, and when silver supplies dwindled, the economy collapsed again. By 1641, Spain's monetary dominance was over. Next came the Dutch Republic. In the 1600s, Amsterdam became the financial center of the world. The Dutch guilder, backed by innovation and trade, became Europe's de facto reserve currency. The Bank of Amsterdam created reliable international payment systems. Dutch merchants pioneered modern finance, stock exchanges, marine insurance, credit instruments, and publicly traded companies. From 1642 to 1720, the guilder dominated global trade for about 78 years. But overextension, especially during the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, led to bankruptcy. By the late 1700s, Britain had risen to take the lead. The pound sterling, backed by industrial might and a vast empire, became the next reserve currency. From the 1720s to 1944, it ruled global trade longer than any currency in modern history. At its peak, more than 60% of world trade was denominated in pounds. London was the center of finance, insurance, and commodities, and the gold standard made the pound a symbol of stability. But after 2 world wars, Britain's debt soared to 270% of GDP. Its century of financial dominance had ended. That brings us back to Bretton Woods in 1944. Delegates met to create a new global financial system, forming the IMF and the World Bank. The Bretton Woods system pegged major currencies to the US dollar, which was convertible to gold at $35 an ounce. The dollar had officially replaced the pound. For the next 25 years, it reigned supreme until 1971, when Nixon ended gold convertibility. The dollar survived by finding a new anchor: oil. After the 1973 OPEC oil crisis, the US agreed with Saudi Arabia that oil would be sold exclusively in dollars, backed by American military support. By 1975, every OPEC member had joined, creating the petrodollar system. This artificial demand allowed the US to maintain enormous deficits. At its peak in 2000, over 70% of global foreign reserves were held in dollars. But signs of change are emerging. By 2024, the dollar's share dropped to 57.8%. Foreign holdings of US treasuries have fallen from over 50% during the 2008 crisis to 30% in 2025. BRICS nations, now expanded with Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and the UAE, are creating financial systems that bypass the dollar. Projects like BRICS aim to settle payments using central bank digital currencies. Meanwhile, US debt stands at $36.4 trillion, 124% of GDP, with 900 military bases in 130 countries. History shows every reserve currency lasts around 95 years on average. The US dollar has held this status for 81 years. All stages of the cycle, rise, peak, overextension, are visible. Portugal, Spain, the Netherlands, and Britain all followed this same pattern, ending in decline. Will the US follow suit? Will the transition be slow like Britain's, or abrupt like the Dutch? Will a single new currency dominate, or will the world become multipolar? History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes. If that rhyme holds, the US dollar may be approaching the final chapters of its century-long dominance.